Hello, and welcome back to the Shrink Down. As we're heading into Super Bowl week, a lot of people have sports on their mind. And so we thought, what would be more appropriate than bringing up youth sports? We're all kind of in that season right now in our lives where our kids are kind of at that age where they're engaging in youth sports. So today we're going to be talking about the impact that participating in these youth sports have for children, adolescents, and also for parents. And we'll also be referencing Linda Flanagan's book, Taking Back the Game, as well. So before we get into today's topic of youth sports, let's do our 4-minute faves. Who wants to start today?
I'll go.
Gary. Okay.
Mine is, and if you're watching this, you can see it. The brand is Oat House. It's called granola butter, but I don't think it actually has granola in it. Maybe it does, but this is the cookie dough flavor.
Looks delicious.
Yum.
There we go. Which I've only tried this one. This is my third jar that I've bought. They also have brownie batter and vanilla flavor, but I'm partial to cookie dough flavor. So I grabbed that. It's in the peanut butter aisle. I got it at Target about 2 weeks ago. So this is my third one in 2 weeks. It's not very big. It's pretty, you can see it's pretty small.
Yeah,
it's really good. It's almost like a dessert dip, I guess. So I've dipped apple slices. I've dipped graham crackers in it. My kids really like it. So like for an after school snack, I'll put a scoop of it with some graham crackers and apple slices and they just dip it. I'm also just eating it by the spoonful. It's really good. Huge fan. You can read and understand all of the ingredients on the label, which is very important. And I just really like it. So I'm very excited that it exists.
What is the protein content?
What about the fiber?
It's not good.
How much fiber is in there?
It's not good. Protein, It's only 2 grams. And the fiber is also only 2 grams.
It is not just for the pure satisfaction.
Yeah,
I know.
It's just for your taste buds.
Yeah.
It's just a tasty treat.
That's good. That's important.
Good. I'm going to look for that.
But very good.
But you could put that on a Kodiak waffle and then you get both.
Let it go.
Exactly.
I'm literally like, how can I get the protein in?
Yes.
Just like walk around with a little
Yes.
infusion of protein.
All about the Kodiak brand. That's a good way to get it in.
Really
So
is.
you're right. It would be a good pairing with Kodiak brand waffles, pancakes. I make usually once a week, I make a pancake sheet of pancake
I
squares.
made that for a while. I love it. My kids love that.
And I'll throw in sprinkles and chocolate chips, and then the kids can serve themselves breakfast on our hectic mornings because I cut them into squares and they just have to heat them up in the microwave. This would be very good on top.
Awesome.
Oh, we should actually share that because that recipe you shared with me is amazing. My kids love it. It is easy. You just make it like the weekend before and it's great.
Yeah.
I'll make that one of my favorites and we'll share it.
Yeah.
Cool. Lauren, what are you sharing with us today?
So a TV show that my husband and I we got through like in a week, maybe a week and a half. The Man on the Inside.
Oh,
Is it The Man on the Inside with Ted Danson? A Man on the Inside with Ted Danson. Have you guys heard of this?
I have. I've known a couple people who have watched it and loved it.
Good. Do it. You can finish it in a week. There's just 8 episodes, one season. I don't know, maybe like 30, 35 minutes each are the episodes. It is adorable. If you are a fan of Ted Danson, it's like him in his prime. He is such a good actor. His acting is so good. It's like just a really good, heartfelt, easy to digest comedy. And the premise is super simple. He responds to an ad from a private investigator looking into a crime in an assisted living facility. So he goes into that.
I love it.
It's adorable. Highly recommend.
Awesome.
Yeah. Wilhelmina, what about you?
So mine is absolutely weather related because I have had the worst dry skin. I feel like just like as I've gotten older, it's been even worse, but in the winters, my skin has always been super dry. Growing up, I actually used to have a humidifier in my room during the winter months, but I kind of like, I don't know, I had forgotten about that. And my kids had them when they were young, but they're just a pain in the butt to like keep up maintenance wise because you like take them out, it's just like mold, and then to wash it, you can never get it clean. So eventually I'm like, I'll just throw this away. Like I don't know. So I kind of had given up, but with that, the moisture in my skin also gave up. And I have just been like, there's not enough lotion, oil in the world. Like, so finally I was like, I need to get a humidifier. So I did some research online and found Canopy humidifier. So it was one that I don't know if it's sold in stores, but it's definitely like one of those online things. And at first I was like, is this one of those like things where you're just like, they're just really good at advertising? And so, but it had some pretty good, reviews, and some big like names had endorsed it as like, this is a really good one. I guess even dermatologists had said it was a good one for your skin. And the best part, all of the parts you can put in the dishwasher.
Actually take out.
that's
Oh, amazing.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Any part that touches water can go in the dishwasher.
I like that.
So, and it's really easy. You can just use tap water. There's no like that thing you drop in, you have to wait and whatever. It's just super easy. It does have a filter that you have to change like every 45 days or something. And you can get a subscription. So it just comes to you every 45 days, which I already signed up for. So I don't have to think about it. I don't have it on my list. It'll just come, flip it out. And it also has this little place on the top where you can put oil if you want for like a little scent, a little, I've done it with the one they sent, and I actually think I'm going to order some more because I do like it. It's just a very mellow scent. Nothing really potent. And it does have a red light and a night light, as well as a white noise aspect to it. I don't use those because we have a white noise machine in our bedroom, so I don't need that. But if we didn't, it would be like a perfect kind of like
All in one.
Yeah. And they have really fun colors. Like mine is like a lavender, purpley lavender. I mean, they have white and basic ones, but they have other kind of like, I think they have a green. So I love it. Love it. And it's mistless. So it almost looks like it's not. My kids were like, where's the water? Why isn't it coming out? And so it's mistless, which is nice.
How big is it?
It's on my bed. It's on my nightstand. So I would say it's a foot tall and maybe a little longer than a foot wide.
Well, fits on a nightstand.
Wide, I would say it's probably 10 inches, and then long a foot. So it's like not huge.
Huge. Yeah. Well, that's good.
I love it.
I keep saying that I'm going to get one because for all the reasons that you listed, and I have not done that.
I mean, I had been saying it for like months, and then finally it was like, I don't know if I just like one time woke up and I was like, oh my God, I can't take it. I need to get some. And it has completely changed. Like my skin, it's normal winter dry, but it is not what it was. So it's absolutely helping.
Good.
100%.
Awesome.
Vanessa, what about you?
Oh.
We all want to know. Tell
I know.
us.
You're right. They're so excited. I know. So I'm going to be talking about Thrive Market. So this is something we've talked about in our group text. So I know some of us are members. So Thrive Market, for anyone who doesn't know, which at this point I feel like a lot of people know about it because lots of influencers are talking about it. But it's one of those things that I feel like is legit because it's an online supermarket is basically what it is. And they provide healthy options for just basically any product that you would want. So it goes down to like house cleaning products. We were just talking about candy that they have made now that are healthier versions of some of the ones that we kind of grew up loving, like Swedish Fish. And then snacks, seasonings, oil spray. So essentially anything that you were looking for at the grocery store, they have. And so you pay an annual membership fee, and then obviously you pay for purchase the products. I just looked up what the current annual fee is, and it's almost $60. It's $59.95. Yep. But I really like it. I have friends who kind of buy everything there or specific things. And the things that I like the most are snacks. So I buy, I would say 90% of our like household snacks from there. And then I do also, I would guess like the next two things that I buy often are like seasonings and like olive oil spray, coconut oil spray, those kinds of things. I just like how easy it is. So you just fill in your cart and then it ships like whenever your auto ship goes in. And then you can even set it up where things, if there's something that you use quite often, it'll just kind of like it just puts it in your cart every time, which I really like. So I can set it up. You can take things out. So if there's something you're like, I don't need any more of those, you kind of take them out. But it's just a really nice, I think, option for just looking, if you're looking for healthier foods and, products that are, better for our planet, better for our health. That kind of goes along with our topic from last week. And I was
Yeah.
mentioning how overwhelmed I feel sometimes with all the like things you should and shouldn't do. So I think this is just one of those nice ones. We still go to the grocery store for our, kind of proteins and fresh fruit and vegetables, but it's just kind of nice to have this come, to our house once a month, these kinds of snacks and things. So yeah, that's what I'm sharing today. Do you guys have any favorites that you get? Because I know, Terry, you order from there.
Yeah, we've done Thrive Market the last couple of years, and we do a monthly subscription, and we have a lot that's on auto. But so mainly snacks. We do a lot of snacks,
that's what we do.
candy kind of treats.
Yeah.
But their app, I love. It's super easy to use.
is,
Do you have to use the app?
Yep, that's how you
click
do it.
around, you remove what you don't want, add in, and it has categories of new things you can try, and I'll browse that and add stuff to the cart. It's very easy to use. I've been very pleased with the app.
You can search too, like if you want to do gluten-free, or if you're looking for specific paleo, whatever you're kind of into, you can kind of, put that in your search, and then it'll just bring up those things. Or protein. I've done a lot of I've searched protein. I'm like, what are my options here for protein? So it's a really easy, Terry, to use. And it has some really good alternatives. I found some really good snacks that I really, really love. There's a popcorn, and I can't think of what it is, but they cook it in coconut oil, and it's
lesser evil.
Is that the beige bag with the pink logo?
Lesser evil.
So good.
Really good.
It's so good.
It's very good.
I have to try it.
Oh, you have to try it. Well, you like to make your own popcorn.
I do. But I do like, having it just made for me sometimes too.
Yeah.
So.
And then the Chickaboom, the kettle corn. I'm like dangerous. I'm like you with your butter there. I go through the bags. I have now decided I have to measure out exactly like the serving size, and then I close the bag and I put it away. Otherwise I just am continually eating popcorn. So but yes, so Thrive Market, if anyone's looking for some healthy options, easier way to shop, I highly recommend. All right, so now that we've shared our faves, we're going to get in today's topic, youth sports. So I was actually just texting these ladies this weekend that we had a jam-packed weekend with my daughter. So she doesn't have competitions every weekend, but it just so happened she does gymnastics and she does ballroom dancing, which is also known as dance sport. That's a very interesting story how we got into that. But this weekend we had back-to-back competitions, and we're spending all this time traveling and whatnot. And so, was sharing that with everyone. And then we just started talking about how, we're all kind of in that season right now. What are your kids doing right now? And it doesn't even have to be sports related, really. It's whatever kind of activities they're in.
So I've got one is in one sport each. So we've got basketball and soccer right now, which soccer you wouldn't think in Michigan in the winter is a thriving sport, but it definitely is because of all of these indoor soccer facilities, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit, that have popped up all over the United States. So we've got two things going on, but just one for each kiddo.
And we've got basketball. It's basketball season for both of my kids, and then wrestling, which just ended for my youngest, my 7-year-old, and he's also doing flag football. So we're in there right now.
I am definitely the outlier within this group and literally all of the groups of my mom friends. So right now my kids aren't in any sports. My daughter right now is doing her middle school musical. They're doing The Greatest Showman. So that's kind of taking up. That really is just during the week. But once it gets closer to the end, it'll be, the weekend of the play and dress rehearsal and such. And then my son is also doing his elementary play, which just got started. Usually we used to be sort of like one sport a season. Winter was always the tough one. And they've done skating in the past, but then not in the last year or so. So we don't currently have any sports that they're doing. And as I said, I'm definitely the outlier in all of my parent and friend groups with that one. They haven't found one that they've connected to. That's the thing.
And that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. And that's okay.
And
That's
that's
Okay.
Right.
The world would not have you believe that, but we know that that is actually okay.
you mentioned something, Wilhelmina, that is a very important point by
Yeah.
season.
Mhm.
When we were kids, sports were by season.
yes.
Spring sports, winter sports,
Yep.
fall
Yeah.
sports. Now, that was a huge adjustment for my husband, by the way, when we became parents. Regardless of where you live, what the climate is, your sport could be year round, all
Yeah.
season.
Like
If
Mhm.
soccer
you
in
Yeah.
the winter
Soccer
in
is,
the
Yeah.
Midwest.
Mhm.
exactly, exactly,
yep.
which is just a small part of the larger picture of how much youth sports have changed over when I talk with parents, not even definitely over the last 30 to 40 years
Yeah,
since the
Oh, of course.
absolutely.
1970s, right?
Yes.
Like Linda Flanagan, the author
Yep.
of Taking Back the Game, discusses. There is such a sociological aspect
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
to how things have changed. But what I have noticed as a parent, things changed dramatically when we were in college and in graduate school. The biggest changes started in the late 90s and the early 2000s when we weren't parents yet. We were busy launching our young adult lives. And in
Mhm.
Yep.
college, that is actually when things really shifted dramatically. It's when travel sports took off.
Yep.
It's when the whole climate around sports changed. So all of us were used to sports being a certain way when we were kids.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then things changed. And now we're parents and we're having to exist and operate in this new
In a
world.
very different world.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and Linda Flanagan actually says she has many reasons why this has changed,
Yeah.
but it's interesting you say like the when the change happened, and she says Disney, when they opened the Wide World of
Yeah.
Sports complex,
I thought that was
which
so
was,
interesting.
and she said it was
Yeah.
basically a way like teens
And
didn't want to go to Disney anymore. They were like, oh, we don't want to go to Disney. It's
Yeah.
baby. So they were like, how can we get teens to come to Disney? So they opened this Wide World of Sports, and it
Yeah.
worked. And it was
Yeah.
so wildly successful that all these other places were like, well, let's open our own sports complex. And
Yeah.
that was like the kickoff to like all of these places opening up, private funding, all of these things, because I mean, who would have thought Disney of all
Well,
things?
yeah.
that was in 1997.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
it was one of the very few destination places that
Mhm.
was 9/11 proof.
Yes.
Meaning when
Yes.
9/11 happened, a lot of travel shifted for
Mhm.
families for a little while after that, with the exception of that sports complex at Disney.
Yep.
And
Yep.
people paid attention to that. So what was happening? So it
Yeah.
launched, I believe it opened in 1997.
Well,
And
and
that
she had,
means
oh, go
it
ahead.
became a tourism.
Yep.
Sports
Yes.
became a tourist thing
Mhm.
because like that. So now you travel as part of it, and you know different towns and tax dollars. It's and Disney started that because they made sports about sports a tourist destination, literally a tourist destination.
I thought the other thing that she mentioned that coincided with that, because she acknowledges it wasn't just any
Yeah,
one
it wasn't
thing,
any
there
one
are
thing.
these couple of variables,
Right.
was the sort of advent of 24 hours news cycle,
Mhm.
Mhm.
or just increased awareness of what was happening in the world, specifically things like stranger danger, kids' faces on milk cartons, now were
Mhm.
kids' faces on the news. And it created this parental anxiety,
Yeah.
like that she called it, of parents wanting their kids to be in something not only structured but supervised.
Yes.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
so it started, and Jonathan Haidt talks about this in his book as well.
Mhm.
So again, all of these multivariables,
Yeah.
but that parents started to not let their children engage in unsupervised play at the local parks as much
Mhm.
anymore,
Mhm.
and were drawn toward these places developing structured, supervised sports programs.
Mhm.
So all of
Mhm.
that timing kind of went together to create this perfect storm that we're all in right now.
Mhm.
That and the
Mhm.
money piece.
Yeah. But
Money,
she
money, money.
she
Money
also
piece.
talks about the shift when you're talking about like the 70s and the change. She talks about how, it used to be like, it takes a village to raise a child, and
Yeah.
that shift to every
Yes.
family is on their own raising their children.
Yep.
And so a lot of this push towards, having your child excel at something,
Mhm.
particularly sports, is she uses the term status safeguarding. So like
Yeah.
you're basically trying to set your kid up for success down the road, and it's all
Right.
on you, and it's your job to do that.
Yes.
There's this mentality that that's the case.
Right.
So I think that that's also something that plays into kind of why that shift has happened towards, going towards these youth sports and getting kids involved.
Well, within that, Vanessa, and the family sizes become smaller over
Hmm.
time as well.
Yeah.
So it allows people to focus on their
Yep.
child in specialization and developing these really, really specific skill sets
Yeah.
because they don't have as many kids.
She said
Yeah.
parents spend on average 20 hours a week. And I
Yeah.
was like,
Mhm.
how? And then I was like, wait, I know how. It's traveling to the sport,
Mhm.
sitting, waiting for
Mhm.
them, or
Mhm.
volunteering. So I know for us, for when Everly has gymnastics, and it's our facility that's hosting the meet, they expect the parents to volunteer. So you're going to
Yep.
be at the door, so
Yeah.
like that's time. So there's all
Concessions
these,
and yep.
right. Or if you're taking your child to a private lesson, right? So all of these things. So 20 hours a week.
Well,
It's
and
crazy.
and I believe it was her, although I do have another a social psychologist that is also a coach that I'll talk about as well. But I believe it was Linda Flanagan that had said in the psychological benefits of sport
16 hours.
is max. And
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
really actually quite a bit less than that.
Yes.
So that was her that said that. Okay. It's really quite a bit less than that per week, but right around that 15 to 16-hour mark, if they go above that
Per week.
amount of time in
Per week.
anything, right, per
Yeah.
week, yes, per
Mhm.
week, then the psychological benefit of engaging in that activity diminishes significantly. And
Mhm.
so if you compare those two numbers, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and
and
oh, no, Terry, you go ahead.
well, I was gonna say, in addition to that, the funding simultaneously, so all of these things
Mhm.
happening, right? Family size shrinking, wide world of sports, at Disney opening this facility, stranger danger, parents wanting kids to be supervised. In addition to that, general funding for
Yeah.
parks and recreational facilities decreased
Mhm.
significantly.
Hmm.
Yep.
And with
Oh,
the
interesting.
smaller family sizes, the average size of a family is 2 kids now.
Yep.
Mhm.
There's much more, the term she often uses is pruning and cultivating.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
I think that goes beyond sports. I think it's
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
however
100%.
parents are always doing a risk benefit analysis of a particular activity. Should I sign them up for this art class? Should we do this particular extracurricular? How is this going to benefit them? How is this going to
Hmm.
serve them? And I mean, there are parents out there, many parents who create profiles. They're creating profiles for their kids for sports.
Yeah.
Kids who are
Hmm.
minors as a
Yeah.
way to advertise them and for them to have a social media presence. So the society that some parents are choosing to raise their kids in, it's become like a social contagion. Like
That's
it
what she calls
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Linda
yes,
Flanagan
I was going to
calls
say
it a
that's
contagion. And she
that,
said it's this like anxiety that
yes.
fuels like parents are doing it, but then the parents who are like, wait, but then they're
This is
like, but
crazy.
is that what I need to do then?
Yeah.
Okay. And then they jump into it. And so it just feeds and feeds and feeds. And it is fear-based. It's like or
Yeah.
like anxiety-based,
Yeah.
really. Like if I don't do this, will my kid be left behind? Will my kid not get into
Yeah.
college? Will my
College is a
kid
big one she
yeah,
talks about.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
college pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was also saying how do you know if you're in too deep? And so her two things were, if you're at a party and in the first 5 minutes you bring up the sport your child is playing, you're in
Mhm.
too deep. And then the second thing is, if you are if you feel like you will be devastated by the fact that your child is quitting, that also
Yeah.
means that you are
Oh,
Yes.
way in too deep. So like that was her
Yeah.
two ways of knowing you've gone down the rabbit hole and you need
Yeah.
to pull yourself back out of there. Yeah.
those are
Well,
so spot on.
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Absolutely. And even I think she mentions in a podcast episode I was listening to that she was on, there's a increase in empty nest coaches
Mm-hmm.
of people that are now coaching just like they're finding their local programs, which we know are probably not recreational programs anymore. They're probably travel programs, and offering coaching services because so much of their life, so much of their extracurricular time and activities were focused in on their kids' sports that when their kids leave
They need some
at 18 and they have the empty nest, they don't know what to do with themselves because they don't have any of their own interests anymore. And she actually
Mm-hmm.
talks about that as one of the ways to sort of prevent getting yourself to that point, which is make sure you continue to have your own interests. Because really all of this, while there's all of these societal pieces, these variables that went into play over the last 30 years that have gotten us to this point, it's each individual parent choosing to engage in this weird hurricane tornado storm that has been created. We have the ability to step out. We have the ability to say, no, I'm not doing this.
Or lower the temperature at least. Turn down the dial a little bit. It's timely we're talking about this. One of my favorite things to do at my kids' sports games is to sit and just listen to the dads behind me. It's awesome.
Oh, there's some moms.
Or the moms. I was going to say, or the moms. I know plenty.
True. That is true. At my fourth graders basketball game over the weekend, one of the days, I heard a dad come up to another dad and go, "Hey, how you doing?" You know, typical,
We enter.
Yeah, exactly. And the one said, "Oh, so is this his main sport?" And the dad replied, "I don't know. We'll see." And that I thought
embarrassing to listen to.
Within the first 2 seconds, I thought, why are you asking a dad of a fourth grader, a fellow fourth grader, if this is their main sport, which brings up this idea of specialization and over specializing. And there is so much data out there that we know about overuse injuries and top youth athletes do not make top adult athletes and on and on.
Burnout.
And burnout and kids quit. I mean, she said there's a couple
11 to
different
13,
studies.
right?
It's either there's 13. Some studies that say 11, some say 13. They're done. They quit.
So young.
But parents know this. We're talking about it. They still have blinders on. They know it. Or do they not? I don't know. What do you think?
I'm like, we know it because we all have these conversations constantly with each other because it bothers us.
Right.
We can feel there was, in that podcast episode, she said, if it sounds crazy, it probably is. I think that's us listening to our gut and our intuition going, this is crazy what we're doing. Right. But I honestly don't think we're
that's everybody. Right. Yeah. That
No,
everyone's feeling that
I
way.
think we are the ones that take that step back and observe and listen and go, wait a minute, this is crazy. What are we doing here? But the cultural forces, it is really easy to get sucked in and act like it's totally normal to cancel your plans. We had
that's one thing she talks about. You should not do that.
We had this happened to us this week, and I actually I adore my son's soccer coach. He's awesome. And Friday afternoon, there was like a notification that a new game was scheduled for Sunday night. And
wonderful.
I know.
That sounds fun.
Sometimes,
what do I want to do on Sunday night? I know.
Sometimes you get less than 24 hours notice.
Oh, we've had that take place
That's
too.
my
And
favorite.
the amount of parents that act as if it's normal. Now, I get it. If you have nothing else going on, it's not that big of a deal. But that's also there's something to be said about that. Like, do you not have your own interests? Do you not have anything else going on? And that's not to shame people that just had an open weekend, because of course that can happen, but we happen to have something going on with a number of other families for Saturday night. And I mean, we agonized over saying no. Like it was actually very difficult for us to say no. We did say no. We went to a family event. We were so glad that we stuck with what was important to us, but we had to actually stop, my husband and I, and have a conversation, like an actual conversation, like, are we good? We're going to say no. Is this like, do we think this is okay? Right. And like, that's a little bit crazy. If it sounds crazy, it probably is.
And it's interesting because you had plans, but imagine you didn't have plans.
We would have totally said yes. Nope.
Yes, because I'm like, but I don't like to make plans on Sunday night because it's like there's so much, like we're getting ready for the week, we're getting groceries and the laundry folded and sort of getting that sort of like, okay, we're about to start. So we would literally have had nothing, but like then we would have felt that pull. But then we don't have the reason of like, well, we're not technically doing anything.
Well, no, and this was Saturday. So we got the notification Friday. This was Saturday. So it was a 24-hour situation.
24 hours. Yes.
But let me tell you, this happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
This happens a lot. And the amount of parents that don't even blink an eye and they're like, okay, cool. Let's go. Let's do more.
We do gymnastics. And so they basically tell us at the beginning of the year, this weekend is when you're going to have a competition, but you don't know if it's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday until 2 weeks before.
Oh my gosh.
And then even recently so this weekend, we knew it was going to be Friday. We didn't know what time. And it ended up being in the morning. And so she had to
Oh,
miss
oh,
school. And my
oh.
husband and I debated very strongly whether or not we were going to take her out of school because she is in theory in a competitive, she's on a team. It's a competitive, but it's supposed to be the team where you are able to explore other interests. So
Interest.
it's supposed
Mm.
to be not as intense because you are exploring other interests. Which boggles my mind that there is another team where there's 6, 7, 8-year olds, 9-year olds who are supposed to be specializing, right?
A
And
more
so
intense there's a more intense
there's a more
team.
intense version, right? And
Mhm.
so, so we were like, this is supposed to be the like, not so intense team.
Yeah.
Like and we kind of went back to her and said, how would you feel if you didn't do this? And she said, I feel like I let my team down,
Mm.
which has clearly been a message she has heard, not from me, because my husband and I did not say that to her. And so we were like, okay, we're going to do this because they only have like 5 meets this whole year, their year. So we're like, okay, but we're thinking ahead. Like, is this something we want long term for her where we're going to be missing school
Yeah.
to play a sport where we know like we love our daughter dearly, but she's not going to the Olympics. Like, she's
Well,
not.
and
So,
honestly, that's just
not
reality
going.
for everybody. That
Yes.
should
Right.
be reality for everybody,
But I
right?
don't think people think that. I think people think
No,
their kids are going to the
No.
no.
Olympics.
I absolutely the NBA, the Olympics. Oh yeah, they all think
Right.
they're going there. Mhm.
Well, and I was raised by a single mom. She had like 3 jobs. She would never have had the time to take me around to all these places. And I remember when we had kids and like the park district registration things started up, I actually made a mental note to myself that I was like, I'm not going to sign up for anything that has weekend anything until like a certain age, like until they're
Yeah.
older.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
that's
I
what
was
we
like,
did the
yes,
same
the
thing.
occasional like one off, like a little
Yep.
class or something like that, fine. But anything that is regularly on a weekend, I was like, my husband works all week. I said, I work.
Yeah.
The weekends are our weekends. And I've kind of stuck by that. Again, there's the skating lessons were on the weekend, occasionally, but that was sort of my like I felt like that was my rule, my perimeter for me that felt right for me. And it is amazing how much pressure I feel from the other parents I know locally that
Mhm.
like in fact, my husband we were at something with our good friends and they were talking about which sports their kids were in. And they said this to my husband and they're like, well, you guys are against sports or something. And he was like, we're not. He's
No.
like, no,
Really against
we're not
sports.
against
Wow,
sports.
that's a
He's like, he's like, our kids haven't found their thing
yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
not, we're
Not
just,
everybody needs to do sports. I did intramural sports, which I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. So like in Catholic
Not
school, I went
really.
to right. So in Catholic school, you just played against the other kids in your school. So like
yeah,
they mixed the grade. It would be like 6th, 7th, and 8th graders mixed up, and there'd be like teams and you played against each other.
yep.
Like
No.
that's what I did. I didn't do sports. I wasn't a sport kid
No, I wasn't a
growing
sport
up.
person until high
So
school.
yeah, like I definitely didn't play any sports in high school. So like this was all new to me. I was saying like you, Wilhelmina, I was like, I am not spending my weekends toting my kid around. And here I am toting my kid around. But it's not every weekend,
Right.
But I was the same way. I was like, I don't know that I want to do that. And now that she's at the age where she asked to do these things, like
Yeah.
Right.
we did not say like she came to me ballroom dancing, watched Dancing with the Stars, and said,
Yes.
Oh my
Mom,
gosh, I
I
think
want
it's
Yes.
to
so cute.
ballroom
I love
dance.
it.
And I ignored her for 2 months. I
But you
was
know
like,
what? It's
yeah,
child
yeah.
led.
Yes,
Right,
She came
that's
up
exactly.
with
key.
it.
So
That's
It's
key.
not something you
exactly.
pushed.
I said to her, there was a competition this week. I said, do you want to do this? If you don't want to do this,
Yep.
I'm perfectly fine taking
Yep.
my Saturday and going somewhere else. And she's like, no, I really want to do this. So I'm letting her
Hmm.
drive that. But I think that can be challenging, right? Like for parents to do and
It
be able
is,
to.
especially if you have a kiddo that's a little bit more anxious or slow to warm.
Mhm.
I mean, that was my Sam, my firstborn, for sure, early on. So we did all the things
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
and we had to push a little bit. And
Yep.
pushing is a little bit different than parent-led
Mhm.
Yes.
decision making on specialization of a competitive
Completely.
sport,
Right.
Pushing to
right?
try something once is one thing.
Yes.
Right. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they can
Yeah.
make an
Absolutely.
informed decision.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
when
Absolutely.
parents, I think if any parents listening think, well, how do I know if this is child led or not? I think it's
Mhm.
pretty obvious. So our
100%.
younger son, Tommy, who's 7, My husband played several different sports growing up and in high school. The 2 sports that he came up to us, we know nothing about. He came up to us and said, "I wanna wrestle."
That's how I
We
felt.
know we know nothing about wrestling, and then he saw some kids at a park last spring playing lacrosse
Mhm.
and came up to us
Oh,
and said, "I wanna do that. I wanna play lacrosse." And
yeah.
I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
let's
You gotta
sign you
move to
up
the
so you."
East Coast.
Yeah.
Yes, so you can
Yeah.
try it,
Yeah.
but kids will see things, they'll
Yeah.
express
Yeah.
curiosity about it. You try it, and then you might even try it and then take a break for a little while or
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then
Yep.
come back to it,
Yep.
and I think having that flexibility to be child-led, and I also think as your kids get older, for my 4th grader, for example, we'll say to him, "Do you wanna do the spring round of basketball?" And he said to us, "Well, what's the schedule?" And we'll say,
Oh.
Mhm.
"Oh, okay, actually, let's sit down." And
Yep.
then I
They
said, "Is there
know.
anything else you wanna do?" And he's like, "I wanna take a comic book making class."
Oh,
I'm
Mhm.
like, "Okay."
Well,
he's so good with that.
yep.
I love
I
it.
know, he loves he loves comics. And
Mhm.
so I'm thinking, "Okay," because he's now getting to an age where he's gonna be 10 next month, where he
Mhm.
can
Yep.
make that informed decision. He knows what are the practices, and he said to me, "Well, how
Yep.
long are the practices? Are they an
Yeah.
hour, hour and a half?"
Okay.
So it does start to be more of a discussion, and it's
Mhm.
more collaborative, and that can be more child-led. And I said to my kids, "You don't there's another spring round of wrestling." And I said to Tommy, "Do you wanna do it or do you wanna take a break? I'd really prefer you take a break." And he's like, "No, I think I'm gonna take a break." Great.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's take a
Yeah.
break
Yep.
because 'cause you're 7.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
if you wanna
Yeah.
try it again, you can try it
You've
again.
Yeah.
got time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
Although
son is
exactly.
it's
does
fun.
like
Go ahead.
basketball through the park district, which is just very like once a week. Like he's not even doing it right now, but like he was doing it in December. And one of the moms was like sitting there and she was like, "Oh, are you going to now sign him up? If you keep him on this and then you sign him up for the whatever Glen Ellen basketball thing, then he's going to have a better shot when he gets to high school of whatever." And I was like, "Are you watching him? I mean, he loves basketball, but I he is not going to be in the NBA. Okay. Like, I don't think I've seen him hit a basket all year." And I was like, "But he loves it with all his heart. So guess what? This is what we're doing. But this is as
Yeah.
far as we're doing it until he
Yeah.
wants to do more." And I
Right.
was like, he is totally happy doing this once a week and running around with his friends and throwing the ball. But I was like,
Right.
that's where it's up. So he's always like, "Basketball is my sport." I'm like, "Yeah,
Sure.
sure."
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And
You
my
like it.
daughter has so for anyone who has ever seen me run, I have a very unique run.
Gait.
Carrie is
Gait.
laughing because she has seen me run. My dad has my run. My cousin had my run. It is very unique. Very unique. So at one point when my daughter was pretty young, I saw her run down the sidewalk and I was like behind her and I was like, "Oh, good God, she has my
Yep.
run."
The run.
But do you know what that run means? It means we're really good runners. Anyone who has
Yeah.
that run, we are like,
Mhm.
when I did kind of fall into cross country my sophomore year of high school, I was like good kind of right away. And
Mhm.
then only got better with practice. So I sort of stumbled across it. So I keep telling Maddie, I was like, "I think you're going to be a good runner if you like it, if you want it." So
Well,
I've
and
like put it out there. I'm just sort of like, "Hey, you've got the run. It's clearly genetic. Like your
Mhm.
grandpa had a track scholarship for college and things like that. Like it's you're going to be a good runner if you want to run, but maybe you
Well,
don't
and you developed that interest later,
later,
and you
much later."
still
Yes.
love running as an
I do.
adult. So you're a
Yeah.
really good single case study
Yeah.
of all of this research that
Mhm.
suggests, like you described falling into it. Like you
Hmm.
were able to kind of figure out, like, oh, this is something I kind of enjoy, and like, oh, look, I'm good at it,
Hmm.
which develops that intrinsic motivation. I wanted to
Yeah.
mention I read this article about the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota
Oh, yeah. Right by my
basketball
high
coach.
school.
Okay, so he's it's Division 1 basketball, okay, at the college level. His name's Johnny Tower. He's also a PhD social psychologist.
Mm.
Ooh.
Oh.
And so they interviewed him in like a local Minnesota
Psychology nerds over here.
I know.
Ooh.
They interviewed him like a local Minnesota paper about this whole concept. Okay, exactly what we're talking about are we ruining youth sports? And one of the things that he said is it's easier for parents to screw up motivation than to create it. And I
Mm,
Mm.
thought that was
Mm.
it's
love
exactly
that.
what you're describing, Wilhelmina, which is like your motivation came really organically and
Hmm.
intrinsically for running
Mhm.
because you tried it, you liked it, and you were good at
And I
it.
was good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think so many parents believe, and I mean, I can see myself being vulnerable. I think we've all had these moments that like we have to do all of these things in a certain way based on what everybody else is telling us,
Right.
in our sort of cultural world about how to develop these skills and this motivation for kids. And really, that's the exact way to screw it up.
Yeah.
Is to
Mhm.
do all of these things too hard, too structured, too early on, and not teach kids just about things like, developing friendships, developing interests, finding things that you're like, "Ooh, this is fun. I want to go do this for fun when I,
Mhm.
have free time."
Yeah.
And so it really, I thought, was a nice way of describing what we're all doing. We're screwing up
Yeah.
the motivation as opposed to helping them create it.
Well, they said that the number one reason kids quit is they say it's not fun anymore. So
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
killing the
Mhm.
fun.
They
I was
get
just thinking,
injured. It's not
right? They don't
fun.
enjoy it. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
was thinking of, I mentioned to you guys that there was this interview with Michael Jordan that I wanted to
Oh
reference. And
yeah.
I don't even know how I came across it. So it was like 1994, 96. Oprah Winfrey was interviewing Michael Jordan, who some of you may know. I'm not going to get into argument. He's one of the best basketball players in
No,
the
it's I
He's
don't think
goated.
people
He's
will
the goat.
people
I
already
don't think you
argue
need
that
to.
with
I think
you.
that's
So,
pretty.
As
so
my kids would say, goated. He's
so he's
goated.
in this interview,
Goated.
and okay, so we're saying he is, if not the best basketball player, whoever's has played, maybe
He is.
some people
Yeah.
debate that, but
Done.
I mean, I'm from Chicago. We're from Chicago, so of course we're going to say that. He did not start playing basketball until he was 12.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he said he
Yeah.
started off as a baseball player at 6. And
Yeah.
so he was playing baseball. His dad happened to buy a basketball hoop and put it in their driveway. And so he picks up the basketball and starts playing. I was like, what a wonderful example of somebody who did not specialize early on
Mhm.
and just happened to pick it up. Like Wilhelmina, you're like, I'm a sophomore in high school. I decided to start running, that you can really excel at something. You don't have to do it so young. Like I thought he was such a great example. And then he talks about how he worked hard, right? So, there's that he wanted to do this, he works hard for that. It was just such a great clip of that interview. And I was like, so many people need to watch this because here is, this amazing basketball player who didn't start at 6 or 5
Yeah.
or 4. He started at 12 and by accident, right? Just picked up the basketball and started playing. So I
And
thought
is
that
it
was
a
great
myth
example.
or is it true that he didn't make his high school team?
No,
I've heard
that's true.
that's true, right? I feel like I've
Wow.
heard
True
people
story.
say that.
Mhm.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
didn't make
Well,
his
he
high
had just
school
started
team.
playing. I mean,
Yeah.
so unfortunately, though, for every Michael Jordan story, there's a Tiger Woods who started at 3 on Johnny Carson.
Or the
And that's
Selena,
what
the
blows these parents.
Williams
Like, we're all
sisters.
preaching to
Yeah.
the choir.
Right.
Wilhelmina got feedback from a friend that we agree too much on this podcast. And unfortunately, this is probably why we're all so close.
That's what I was gonna say. That's why our friends, we are, I mean,
Right. Like we
that's
all have that
why.
same perspective. And I want to hear that interview, Vanessa, because that's the kind of stuff that I love to save and
Yep.
like click on for my kiddo if they need that kind of like just hearing it from somebody else. The problem is there are so many parents that would give you the argument for Tiger Woods.
Yeah, I
They'd be
know.
like, well, I mean,
And look how he turned out personally.
I'm
In
like,
terms
is
of-
that a
well,
success?
they
Is that a
all
success
have their
story?
personal, even your favorite Michael Jordan, all have their
True.
personal
True.
stuff. Let's
Very
be
true.
honest, poor guy.
Very,
I
very,
mean,
very
some
true.
of that's also driven by the places, right? So, for example, so we put Everly in gymnastics when she was like 2 or 3. We did like a mommy me toddler. Like there was no like,
I did that with the boys.
yeah, there's no thought of like this is what she's gonna do.
Yeah.
But then she kept doing it because she liked it. And at some point we were trying to debate like, should we go back to the old gym we went to? We stopped going because of COVID. Like, is this, where do we want to go? So I called and I was like, oh, my daughter's 7. She was 7 at the time. And, she's been doing gymnastics, for a while. And, I wanted to talk about switching. And they were basically like, oh, she's kind of old already. And I was like,
telling us this
she's
last year on our trip.
7.
Yes, that's
She's 7. She was in first grade at the time. I'm like,
She's getting a little old.
she's kind of old,
oh, you really missed the deadline.
And I was like,
my
but
gosh.
she's been in gymnastics, but besides that, they were like, well, she's kind of old. And so I was like, okay, clearly we're not going to your gym because you already
Right.
think my kid at 7
Culturally,
is
that's not the
done,
place for you.
is out the
Yeah.
window.
Mhm.
So, I can imagine parents hearing that from,
Mhm.
this facility that they're calling, they're like,
Yes.
oh my, it sets panic in, right? So even if you're
Yes.
trying to be
Yep.
this, a parent who's-
Level-headed,
right.
like
You hear this from this professional,
Mhm.
yep,
your
you
kids
get a
do-
spike. You're like, oh, something. I've missed something.
Yeah.
exactly. And then,
I'm behind.
even dancing. So when Everly started dancing, her coach was like, well, all the, kids her age have already been dancing for however long. So she went into a class with peers that were a little bit younger. And I was like, okay. And then I felt kind of bad in the moment, even though I was like, I didn't even know that this
I
was a
know.
thing that people did, she wanted to do this. And it's funny because because she's older, she has made such vast, like she's now way ahead of those kids. And
Right.
it's not, I don't even necessarily know that's, I mean, I think she's a good dancer, but part of it
Well,
is
she
just
could make the I was gonna say
developmentally,
cognitively,
she's
she could make the connections.
yes, that
Yes.
they can't because they're
Yeah.
5 and 6.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I don't, again, we talk about like we're starting these kids early on, but there is something to like brain development as you get
Mhm.
older that you can pick up things that you can't necessarily when you're younger because you just don't have the cognitive capacity to do so. So
Yeah.
I do feel like
Yeah.
there are reasons why you would wait. And, one of the things she brings up is injuries in kids. These
I was
kids,
just
like,
going to mention
they're
that.
quitting because of the lack of motivation, but these kids are also getting these serious major injuries
Like
from
Huge
overuse.
injuries.
Yes.
Huge
They're
injury.
overuse injuries,
I see so
crazy.
many like kids, well, young adults, late teens. I have seen over the years, I've had multiple people who've gotten knee replacements
Mhm.
at like 18, 19.
Yep.
And guess what? You can't just keep getting knee replacements. So
No.
like at some point, like you're gonna have to get another one. And my friend Erica can attest to this because she has something with her ankle. Like they can't do a lot after a certain point. So
Yeah.
like
Right.
you are literally sacrificing your body
Right.
to have it be already compromised at like as a young adult.
Well,
Yeah.
what I think people don't realize is it's not just playing the one sport overuse. A lot of these kids are playing the one position.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's the one singular sport plus the same
Mhm.
position, especially for
Yeah.
baseball. I think you
Yes.
see that a lot with baseball.
Like
If
shoulders and
Yeah.
if you're the pitcher or if
So you're
you're the
doing the
catcher, you're
same
first baseman.
movement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, the goal, so there's so much focus on winning. So I was reading some
Right.
about that. There's so much focus on winning that a lot of times teams are not willing to try new things and
Yeah.
switching up positions,
Oh.
switching
Yeah.
up the plays that they're going to
Yep.
make. They don't want to do that because they
Yep.
know that X, Y, and Z works. And our
Yep.
goal is not to become necessarily better
Well-rounded
players.
athletes,
Our
right?
goal is to be winners. And so that's part of it. So they're having the kids play the same exact plays, the same
Uh-huh.
position, right? And so
Yeah.
that's hindering them both physically, but then they're also not being able to learn new skills.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so ultimately it makes you not as good as a player because you're
Yeah.
not a well-rounded player then if you can't kind of do multiple things. So I thought that was so interesting.
It's a really good point.
Yeah.
It is a really good point, and I think
Mhm.
it puts the responsibility on parents, which of course it's always the responsibility
And
of parents, but
coaches.
to pay
Yeah.
Mhm.
but to pay attention to a coach that would be
Yes.
willing to say,
Yeah.
so as much as I just spoke about the coach that scheduled the game within 24 hours, he um, forces, encourages, pushes the kids to try different positions.
Mm.
And Jack, the first time, Jack started off in defense. It just kind of worked for him. It was like really natural for him in soccer. And then he put him in midfield. And it was like, Jack was like, I'm sorry. Like he was like beside himself, right? Because he didn't know exactly what to do. And we're like, well, he obviously has the faith in you that you can figure this out. So give it a
Mhm.
try.
Yeah.
And that kind of cognitive connection of, oh, I can do this and create this kind of new pathway
Yeah.
to learn a new skill gave him so much confidence that it was a really nice thing for us to see as parents of like, this is the right spot for our child in so many ways for those kinds of reasons. But it's hard as a parent to find those people
Yeah.
in the
Mhm.
culture that has been created. And so I think a lot of times that we're vulnerable to
Mhm.
getting stuck in these kind of cycles of competitive specialized sports that we didn't sign up for. Like we
Yeah.
didn't sign up for
Yeah.
this. What happened? Right?
That's one of the things they said is as a parent, you should, because you're not the coach, obviously, but you should be looking for the coach whose
Yeah.
main priority is parenting. Like
Yes.
that's
Yes.
their main
Mhm.
priority is the parenting piece and not
Ooh, I
being
love
the coach.
that.
So you can have
Mhm.
some control, right? You can't control everything that's going on, but you can look for those coaches who are more concerned about the parenting piece, right? Than the ones who are more focused on winning, right?
Mhm.
Well, in that podcast with Linda Flanagan, I think she had put it really well when she said that sports today have made children go from our employees as parents to our
Oh,
bosses.
yes.
That's
Mhm.
wonderful.
And so if you think about that, then a
Amazing.
coach could be like the CEO, and then you've got their bosses. So you want someone that's going to help actually keep your role as a parent and their role as
Yeah.
kids, and
Absolutely.
cultivate that, nurture that, have the bigger picture in mind, just like you as a parent want for your kids,
Yeah.
as opposed to winning. And that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Vanessa, can we should link this. We keep referring to the book in the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
We'll have
Well,
to link that for folks
Yep.
because it's worth a
Yeah.
listen. It's worth a read. I mean, listen to us first, but then
We can definitely link that on Instagram, and I'll find that clip of Michael Jordan because I just think it's so good. And
Yeah,
what I was like,
absolutely.
I don't even know. It came up on
I would love
Instagram
to see
somehow.
that.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts on today's topic? I feel like we could talk for like another hour on this. Maybe we'll talk more on another podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say we could have a complete part 2. But I
Mhm.
think
think
what
so.
Linda Flanagan said is good to end on. If it sounds crazy, it probably is.
Yep.
I love
Trust your
that.
gut. Trust your gut.
Agreed. Well, thank you for joining us today. Please join us next time on The Shrink Down.